So we made some changes to the local repository for the Linux client, and we push those to the remote repository, so to GitLab. Now let's have a look in the Windows client what is going on here. So let's inspect the files we have in our local repository, and as you can see there is only a README file. There are no C files at this point. Okay, that's normal because of course I didn't synchronize this local repository of the Windows client with the remote GitLab repository, and I can do that by pulling. So I simply pull the repository, and I'm going to choose merge rather than rebase. So basically we pull. It takes a while. Okay, so the pull merge succeeded. Now again, let's have a look at what is in our local repository, and indeed now we see the greeting.c file and the to-do file. Now person 1 has a task and person 2 has a task. Person 1 is going to do that on the Windows machine. Person 2, of course it's both me, but is going to do that at the terminal. So the first person is going to generalize the function a little bit so that actually our current greetings are just special cases. So person 1 edits the file, and writes a general function which is just void greet. It takes two arguments, a message and a name. And it will simply print first the message and then the name. And now, of course, the two other functions can be implemented in terms of that particular function. So basically we simply have greet hello and similar for bye. Okay, we save the file. And we can quit the editor. Okay, so when we return to SmartGit, it's clear that greeting.c has changed. So we can stage it and we can commit it. Let's just do a commit because that will stage the changed file automatically, as you can see. Greeting.c is staged for commit. Let's add a message, and that would be generalize in the function. Okay, as you can see, we can commit and we can commit and push. Let's do the latter because we're done here. So basically we can just do the two operations in one go. Okay, excellent. So now task number 2 has to be performed, and that's going to happen in the Linux terminal. So the second person is going to make the function a bit more robust. He will add a check whether the argument which is passed happens to be null or not, because if it's null, that might be an issue. So note that I'm not going to pull, so I'm going to simulate that this person forgets to do a pull. And let's see what happens. So, of course, greetings is the previous version, because the changes which were made in the Windows repository were pushed to remote, but we didn't do a pull in the Linux repository, so basically we still have the old version. And here we are going to check that if name is not equal to null, and then we print something, otherwise we don't do anything. And of course we'd have to do the same thing for the second function, and for good measure we ought to include std_limit.h. Okay, these are all the changes we want to make, so basically we're done. And we're going to stage this particular change. Let's do git status for good measure, and as you can see, I can now commit. All of these are local operations, so make functions safer to use. And we do that by testing for no argument. Okay, so we're done. And of course we want to see our changes reflected in the remote repository, so we do a git push. As you can see, that fails, and we get a hint. So basically updates were made, but we would first have to do a git pull. So let's do that. And as you can see, there is a problem. There's a conflict, and basically we have a merge conflict here. So as you can see from my prompt, actually now we're in a merging state. So before I can do anything reasonable, I'll have to resolve this issue. So let's have a look at the greeting, because that's obviously where our problem is. And basically you can see that Git has done sort of a merge, and some things are quite okay. So basically it has the hello world here. So this part here is the local part, the working copy, and this part here is the remote. So essentially now we have to clean up. We have to ensure that our actual version is what we want. So we definitely want the include file. So I'm going to remove this already, but this is not really what I want. So I just want this line, and I want to go into the generic function. Now the generic function is here, so let's adopt that. And then of course I don't need the changes here anymore, since they're already in the generic function. So I can simply remove this and get rid of this as well. So now basically everything has been cleaned up. I can save this. Let's check the status, and as you can see, now I can do a git add. Greetings, git status, and as you can see, Git is now modified. So I can now commit. So basically now I can simply accept this commit message. It's fine as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and as you can see, now we're no longer in a merge state. And now I can happily push. Let's just, for the sake of the argument, do a pull first. Obviously nothing has changed in the remote, but we can still try. And then we can do a git push in order to get the changes which we made here into the remote repository. Person 1 can now get the current version in the remote repository just by doing a pull. So yes, please pull. And as you can see, now all changes are reflected here. And if we look at the file, then you see that indeed we have the latest version, so also person 1 now has the latest version. At this point the 3 repositories are in sync: the GitLab repository, the Windows repository which is used by person 1, and the Linux repository which is used by person 2. So all of them are currently in sync.